Good. All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Bjorn Lapaco. I'm the head of community here at Funderbeam. We have a great little setup for you tonight. Welcome, everyone here at Lift 99. Same with everyone here on Facebook Live and in our live stream on join.me/Funderbeam. There are a few housekeeping things that I just have to share with everyone, and then we'll get started right away. So, first of all, if you have a beer, great. If you need one, just back there, and we have refreshments for you. Next thing, just so everyone knows, this event tonight is purely informational, so it's here for you to get to know and get to hear the stories of SATU Laboratory and also Tanker Brewery. It's also an opportunity for you to, more importantly, ask questions of the founders. So in the comments section, physically here live, please don't hesitate. Just ask whatever questions you have on the top of your mind of the founders. There are a very small amount of things that we can't discuss in this type of format. One being if you had any questions about the actual specific terms of their respective fundraising campaigns. For those types of questions, if you log on to funderbeam.com, go to their campaign pages and ask in the discussion section of their campaigns, then those questions will get answered directly and promptly for you. Secondly, there's just kind of a general information for everybody, but investing in early stage companies is always risky. So regardless of your background, please, if you haven't already, go to funderbeam.com and check and review our risk disclosure statement. If you go to the website and just scroll all the way down to the bottom of the page, under legal, you'll see risk disclosure. And so make sure, if you haven't, click that link and read all the details there. And now finally, just enjoy yourself. This is like a totally relaxed setting. Like I said, any questions you have on the top of your head, please ask them. They could be of the founders themselves, of the company, of the campaign, or directly to us at Funderbeam, which now leads me to introducing who's going to be hosting most of the night. Our syndicate manager, David Musu. He will introduce each of the founders to you. They'll present their companies, and then they'll conduct a very short interview followed by a Q&A. So without further ado, David, please take the stage.
Hi everyone, thank you for the intro, Bjorn. So we're going to start very shortly with SATU and Sim Sat, who's the founder and CEO of SATU. So the format will basically start with having a short sort of pitch deck or presentation where they will talk about the company, how it got started, what's going on right now, and why they're having this fundraising campaign. And we'll follow that up with a sort of a live Q&A session. So feel free to ask any questions during or after the presentation. And we can start right away with Sim.
Testing. 1 billion, 2 billion. Okay? Everybody can hear me? Yeah. Excellent. Hi. Do I get any clicker?
I got you.
Ah, you got me. Okay. I will wave you when. Okay. Hi, my name is Sim. I'm from consumer healthcare startup SATU Laboratory. Yeah. And we produce gel wipe. It's environmentally friendly and flushable upgrade to wet wipes, because no wet wipe right now at this point is actually flushable. Throughout history, people have used some kind of moisturizing component for cleaning their bottoms, and it's quite logical. We don't clean our face nor our hands with dry cloth. I wouldn't go close to my bicycle even with dry paper or towel. So why are we behaving differently with our bottoms? Nowadays, more and more adult people are using so-called flushable wet wipes, but there is a huge problem because flushable wet wipes often contain plastics and are virtually indestructible. The reason behind that is because INDA and EDANA standards are made up by wet wipe manufacturers themselves. It's like tobacco companies setting safe smoking limits. Also, dry toilet paper doesn't clean enough, and micro cuts from TP aren't uncommon. We always say that bidet toilets are a perfect solution when you have enough time and money, but quite often people are using bidet toilets in a wrong way. There is so many basic rules how to use it. The water has to be at the right temperature. It can't be too cold or too warm, and you always must use some kind of special foams or gels, because water doesn't clean enough. It only transports the feces from point A to point B, and it's really sensitive theme among women because urinal infections are quite common because of that. Yeah, next. In 2015, The Guardian elected wet wipes the villain of the year. Wet wipes are costing taxpayers and wastewater industry around the world billions of dollars. Thames Water calculated that every year, because people are flushing wet wipes, taxpayers have to pay £81 million extra. In Canada, the number is $250 million. In Sydney, only Sydney, not the entire Australia, the problem is around 13 to 15 millions a year. There was a lawsuit against white wipes because of that, and they had to pay $700,000 in a court because they labeled their product flushable, but of course they weren't flushable. There are similar legal actions taken against wet wipe manufacturers from Washington to London to Berlin. Famous fatberg. Fatberg is a new word in Oxford Dictionary at least a year. It didn't exist before. Fatberg is a lump of wet wipes and fogs, food oils and greases that people pour down the sink. And it's a costly problem. The Whitechapel fatberg is the most famous. It was discovered last year, and you can see it was huge. It was 250 meters long and 130 tons. It actually has its own stand in London's National Museum now. You can buy tickets and then go and see how they removed it, and then there is a small piece of wet wipes there. So the price of removing it was almost £1 million, £800,000 if I remember correctly. And this is a huge issue. It was only one that is so big, but this smaller 500 kilos, 1 to 3 tons, they are so common in London. Because when wet wipes, even though it's made from cellulose fibers and doesn't contain plastic parts, when it dries up and is covered with food oil, it basically repels the water from it and it doesn't dissolve. And even when it's finally dissolves, it will take at least a week or two. The blockage is already made. People who live in apartment buildings usually don't notice this problem because they don't know how much wastewater industry is asking extra from their water consumption on their bill. but people in the United States, and especially in North America, who have septic tanks, they will notice the problems quite quick, because their grass will be covered with feces and water. So I mentioned INDA and EDANA standards. Things are changing slowly because of the bad reputation that the flushable wet wipes nowadays have. Finally, the wastewater industries are working closely with so-called flushable wet wipe manufacturers, but things are moving really slow, and wastewater industry thinks that only 7 to 4% of wet wipes will get this flushable sign. So the solution, we produce gel that you put onto the toilet paper and wipe your bottom with it. When I started with this company, I was the only one. Actually, there was another company at the same week that the guy had the same idea, but they made foam, and we were still arguing who was the worst. Wikipedia says that it was me, so I will take a point from that. When we started, we were the only one. Now there are almost 30 companies that produce similar products, usually water-based sprays that will ruin the paper quickly, or foams, but foams doesn't clean enough. Also, Georgia Pacific, billion-dollar company, made their own spray, Haiba, but it's water-based, and you have to use special toilet tissue that isn't actually flushable. It's like 3 kitchen towels pressed together. So yeah. For obvious reasons, I can't do you a live presentation, but for that we have excellent graphics, and everybody who wants, I will hand out free samples. If you're brave enough, because good hygiene is always sexy. Wet wipe market is growing rapidly. Right now it's around 15.7 billion, and they're expecting it to be a $21 billion industry in 2021. Of course, not the area wet wipe here is marketed as flushable, and some are used for cleaning computer screens. Our potential market share is around 4 billion, and is the most quickly growing part of this wet wipe market. Achievements, as small as they are, Metso Tissue, one of the largest toilet paper manufacturers, confirmed our quality. They produce Sedla and Lambi. I was selected among 7 healthcare startup entrepreneurs in the world by Healthcare Startup Society in London. BP Awards by Riisi. It's the most prestigious award in pulp and paper industry. So we got nominated and selected among 7 most innovative ideas. Okay, yeah, it's missing a slide that I wanted to talk. Right now we're selling through pharmacies in Estonia, in Apoteka and university, Ülikooli Apteeki. But most of our sales are coming through Amazon and optimizing Amazon. Right now we are having fulfillment by Amazon in UK. We really hope that we will get fulfillment by Amazon North America this week, but there was some problems in the customs, and we'll get it in 2 weeks from now. Team, my name is Siim. I had an idea and developed it in Hungary with one of the oldest cosmetic companies over there. Thomas, he's digital marketing wizard or ninja, or I don't know how to call him, what's the modern word. Kerttu, the great graphics and design is from her. And the newest member is Raino Rasuk. If anybody here tries to sell things in Amazon in Estonia, they know about Raino, because Raino is a top guy. He built his own company, Nocra, you can look it up on Amazon from scratch, and the sales at this point are $600,000 monthly. And he's helping us with SATU because he's a huge fan. He discovered us because he started to use it, and he thinks that he can duplicate his previous success with SATU in 2 to 4 years. By using gel wipe, our customers have already helped remove 1 million wet wipes from oceans and sewers, and it's a huge issue around the world, this environmental problem. Even it's so severe that there are so many wet wipes in river Thames that it already has changed the speed of the river because it's like a plastic bottom, and the speed will be quicker because there is less friction. Yeah, thank you. My contact data is there. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask. I've heard everything from hemorrhoids, from vicious diarrhea. Yeah, I know every pit and a pop. So trust me, nobody here can surprise me with their problems previously or their questions now.
David, Sim.
So thank you very much, Sim. So we're going to continue with our brief Q&A sessions. So I have a few questions for Sim that we'd like to discuss. But please feel free to raise your hand, ask the questions, and we'll sort of move along as the questions come in. So Sim, what I want to start with is, clearly you're very experienced in this industry, but where did the story start from? How did you What made you pursue this challenge?
I really want to answer that question, that it's because I really care about the environment, but that would be lying. The long story short is potato salad and vicious diarrhea. That's the short and honest answer. I had diarrhea, and after sitting on a toilet bowl at least 2 to 3 hours, I had a bad rash because they're using really harsh chemicals to get the cellulose white. It's not the natural color of paper. And I sent my girlfriend to buy me wet wipes that would be flushable. And when I discovered that the flushable regulations, when you're sitting in a toilet, you have a lot of time to Google, and are quite silly, that even though they had flushable logo there, you can only flush one at a time, and you must wait 10 minutes, and if it clogs up, it's not their problem, it's still your problem, because it went through the S-bend. That was the mark that it's flushable. What happens after that? They don't care. So then I googled that the toilet paper moisturizer, tissue spray, that there must be something, because I thought that it should be a common problem, and I discovered that there actually isn't. And I thought that, okay, it's interesting. I saw the potential and made research and started to developing the product. And because I didn't have any chemical background, I studied actually psychology and history in university. It took me many years to reach that level that they let me actually into laboratory to test. So yeah, that's.
Okay, very interesting. So, you mentioned during the presentation that, when you started, there was practically very few, another company, right? That was
Fresher, yeah.
The same kind of gel product. And since then, it was a foam.
Yeah.
So since then, you mentioned also that there's been spray, foam, so new people joined the market, but clearly yours is focused on a gel. So why did you choose that route, and how did you ensure that the quality is what it is, basically?
Thank you, that's a good question. Because these sprays usually are really liquid and water-based, and you must use so much toilet tissue, so your fingers won't go through. or you must be really quick. I'm from Saaremaa and they're really slow over there, and I needed a better solution. So, and foam, I tried to make also a foam, but the foam didn't feel natural. Guys here who shave their beards, who actually have beards, not like me, you know that this Gillette gel, it feels better and closer to the skin. It's basically the same with this gel wipe. The gel feels better, it cleans better, because usually guys, I don't know, usually guys have hairier bottoms. So we have that also. So the gel is the only form that doesn't ruin the toilet paper, and you don't be afraid that your fingers go through.
Thank you very much. So I'm also thinking, having been, having started this journey with presenting company that and pursuing the area that you are, it can be sometimes a bit challenging, maybe, to present a good case, being in the, the topic that it's in. But it's also at the same time a very serious concern. Recently, I've noticed there's been a lot of media about a lot of attention towards this fatbergs, if you will, in UK. So how has that been moving? So how could you describe this shift towards using alternative solutions?
It's definitely easier. When we tried to contact with retail shops in UK or elsewhere a year ago, it was difficult. But after the fatberg scandal, and then basically there's every week there's a story about wet wipes on Tree Hugger, even Playboy, and everybody are concerning now that it's a huge environmental issue. And we actually had a story about us, a quite detailed story on Forbes in June. Not on the main page, but the less read environmental part. We were there, like toilet paper gel is the solution, and that was it's actually quite good. If we would contacted them a year or two ago, Forbes, I think the editor would have laughed. Mm-hmm. So it has made our lives more easier, definitely.
So it's a project that goes essentially hand in hand with toilet paper manufacturers. Have you had any interest from such companies or contact?
We have had different interest. SATU tested our gel in Germany over 1.5 years, and they allowed us to use their logos in our presentation, and we can say it out loud that SATU has high enough quality to work together with our gel. We also offer them cooperation to sell our products together in combined packages, but they declined it at this point because they want to see how the market develops. But they also didn't buy the wet wipe manufacturing line. They had an idea because basically every toilet paper brand out there is also producing wet wipes. And SATU also wanted to buy a wet wipe manufacturer line, but when they made tests with our product and saw our research, they didn't buy the wet wipe line. So there has been interest, because there are around 10 orders through Amazon, and I like to see who is ordering. Yeah, the big brother is watching the address in Google Maps, and last week and week before that, Rockline Industries ordered 5 bottles through Amazon. Rockline Industries is among one of 3 largest wet wipe manufacturers in the world. And last week also 5 bottles went to London, the headquarters of Tork. They're in a group of Svenska Cellulose Association, that's nowadays called SATU, and they produce Seva toilet tissue. So there is definitely interest, but everybody is monitoring, and because it's a quite small community among this product developers, among tissue industry, we all talk to each other, and I knew 3 years before Georgia Pacific actually came public with their watery foam. I knew 3 years ago that there's started development. And it may sound crazy, but I really, really hoped that they will have a great product. Because if $1 billion company has a great product, it helps us to educate consumers with less resources. And it's not a market where the winner takes it all. It's a developing market, it's growing rapidly, and yeah, that was the reason. But when I ordered Haiba technology, they spent, I think, like almost $40 million. I spent my student loan and hitchhiked to Hungary.
So you pay a lot of attention to the consumers that are buying your product. Do you have any success stories from your consumers that you can share?
Without names, of course, because every feedback is kept secretly, because it's a delicate matter. People don't want their names out there. We have different stories, actually. There was in Estonia, in Võru, there was a small child. He was under 10 years old, and he has a compulsive, impulsive behavior towards cleaning himself. And every time he went to the toilet, he used 1.5 toilet rolls. You can imagine the damage he did to his skin, itching and scratching and everything. And it was before we had made our first sales to Apoteka, and the mother just wrote us that is it possible already to buy it. I said, you don't need to buy it, I can send you the sample. And a week after that, he sent a long letter thanking us because his son was using only a half roll of toilet tissue, but didn't have the rash anymore, and because of that didn't scratch his bottom publicly. So yeah, we have so many different stories. One gay couple from London wrote us that it's good lubricant, and so I have heard. Basically, every week we will get some kind of positive feedback from customers, and we have educated us, and we are still learning some new things throughout this process. When I first had the product idea, I was sure that my main customer will be a skinny-jeaned Kalamäe hipster, but seniors, elderly women, women after menopause, because their skin gets drier. Also athletes who ride bicycles and so on. There are campers, military personnel who's in forest camps, people who are receiving chemotherapy because of the cancer, and there are also skin goes really, really dry. People with psoriasis, hemorrhoids, or fellow diarrhea. So yeah.
Thank you very much. I think do we have any questions from the audience, perhaps?
In Estonia, where I can buy one?
In Estonia, you can buy in Apoteka pharmacy and in university, ülikooli apteek, UA. Also, it's available on Apoteka online store. That was a tactical choice. There is an unwritten rule in retail that you can start in pharmacy and move to Selver in retail, but pharmacies will never ever let you in to be a pharmacy grade brand when you start selling your product first in Selver, Solaris, Maxima, Prisma, and that's the reason why we started from pharmacy, because we believed in our high quality and wanted to give our brand extra value, and that's the reason.
So, what's your secret? How haven't those big companies cracked your recipe?
There isn't any secret. I think the key to my success, if I can say it out loud, is that I didn't have a previous package. I was not afraid to ask silly questions that people who have chemical education would never ever ask. And of course I started not from the bottom, but from the top. It's basically a reverse engineering, I think. I first looked through cosmetic stores and found how thick the gel must be, like hand sanitizers, creams, shampoos, and then I worked back to take away ingredients so it would be allowed to use in anal area. So backwards. I don't know why. I know that Georgia Pacific also had idea to develop same kind of gel in the 90s, but of course the market wasn't ready at that point. It's a good question. I really don't know. I don't know why Georgia Pacific didn't make gel and just spent a couple of millions on poor quality foam. But there is one company near San Francisco that is also developing gel. I have seen her formula and I believe that she can make it in a year or a half. So yeah.
For you, how long was the development process?
It's hard to put an exact date. It's around 3 to 4 years. So, and after that, all the paperwork, because it's a cosmetic product, luckily not a medical product, it would be even harder, was also long. To get paper in EU that your product is allowed to use in newborns and children under 3 years, it's probably the most difficult paper to get. We needed to hire a laboratory that tested our laboratory, and needed to hire a laboratory that tested the laboratory that tested our laboratory, and then we needed to hire a laboratory in London that tested all the 3 laboratories separately and together. So yeah, we are validated by Intertech. It's a $1 billion company, and all the high-end and high-quality cosmetic products are tested there. And it took 1.5 years to get that license.
Hey, Sim.
Hey.
Thanks. It's been really interesting. I'm from Australia and just visiting. I wonder how you generate people to talk about your product. Word of mouth and social media. How do you get people posting on Facebook that they love your product and it solved all their problems?
It's a struggle. In Twitter, it's easier. In Twitter, we can say environment and save the oceans and beaches and Thames River. But in other forms of social media, you have to make fun. But there is a thin line. You can make fun, but you don't want to end up as a joke. So you need to keep a balance over there. And there are different groups have different interests. So in one group we talk almost every time about environment. With sport guys we talk about hemorrhoids, or that good hygiene is really sexy, because you never know when you need to show your beautiful bottom to the world. It's difficult. Right now we are. When we're approaching a new target group, we usually start our conversation with medical or health stories, and then environment, and then hygiene, because it's intimate. I still have friends who are over 30 and giggle every time they buy condoms. So yeah.
I'm wondering what your plans for the future. Do you want to stick with rectum cleansing, or do you give some attention to other areas?
Right now we are focusing in that particular part of human body, but we are also developing other series of scented products that have a fresh smell, because people are choosing the products usually by smelling them. Also a larger container for babies, because you need one hand to work with the container, because the other hand must always hold the baby when it is struggling. Also, we'll have a smaller bottle in autumn, so the campers and then people who are going to hiking or traveling can carry it more easily. And we have that kind of product development. Maybe in the future we'll have some kind of soaps, or if we can find a really, really good idea. But right now we're focusing on this market because we finally can feel and see the potential, and that it's growing, and it takes all of our time.
I didn't see any PhD in development field or chemical backgrounds or university. Do you outsource your development and do you have IP protection?
Yes, our IP, or intellectual protection is protected by license. It's same as a patent in other industries. I outsourced some of the development. Like I mentioned, I went to Hungary, started cooperation with one of the largest cosmetic factories in Hungary. But before going there, I sent letter, I think 150 laboratories around the world, around Europe and plus Turkey. The Turkish laboratory answered me 1.5 years later. In Estonia, nobody took us really seriously. They said that it's a silly idea and you can't make it. But yeah, we are working closely with a laboratory and factory in Hungary, but we own the license. So, yeah. Yeah, you have.
As you already had a feedback concerning the lubrication, why don't you think about approaching the lubricant market?
The question is, why have you considered more as a lubricant than a...
Lubricant? That's a good question. Because I don't want to... We have a small team, and even this small niche market, which is worth a couple of $1 billion, takes a lot of effort to focus. And entering the lubricant market, knowing how thorough people are in our team, it would take at least a year or a year and a half to learn everything. Because right now I know like there are over 44 different ways how people are wiping their bottoms, depending where they're from, which neighborhood from London, if they have higher or lower education. I want to know things. I want to know everything about the industry. I want to know everything about competition, when they are developing, what they are developing, every news, every night before I go sleep, before 7 o'clock in the morning, I Google wet wipes, fatberg, flushable core cases. Usually when people are going out on Friday, I'm reading court documents that are 200 pages long. I couldn't do it the same thing, the double that. So that's maybe in the future, maybe in a few years, but it's so much different. Yeah.
So, go ahead.
Yeah. So to understand correctly, that the production right now is also in Hungary.
Yes, our bottles come from Italy, but production is in Hungary. At one point, we are searching production partner in North America because of the tax reasons and transportation costs. Yes. We selected Hungary because they had a really, really good reputation because of their background, and it's also environmentally less smaller burden than producing somewhere in China, that they have looser regulations, and also you don't have to transport from so long distance.
So we can take a few more questions. I'd like to ask one of my own. So what is your ultimate vision essentially with SATU Laboratory? What are your goals?
Ultimate goals is that SATU will be a common household item in not every bathroom around the world, but we're reaching to get in next 5 years 1 to 3% of the wet wipe market. It's worth around $400 to $600 million. That's our goal. And yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, India is an interesting market, also China, but there is a slight problem. White toilet paper is just entering in those markets, and besides introducing ourselves, we must introduce also white toilet paper. But I agree that there is potential in cooperation with toilet paper manufacturers, making combined packages and selling our ideas together. We actually had a letter of intent from one of the largest pharmacy chains in India 2 years ago, Glenmark Pharmaceutical, and we even discussed licensing. And the negotiations took almost over 1 year, and at the end they just pulled like the stop, like okay. Things are moving too quickly. Which first we just wanted to sell them like 10,000 units, but then they started to ask about licensing, and everything grew too big. So yeah.
So we can take one more question, and then we'll basically stop for a short pause. Would anyone have final question to ask?
I can ask one question. Do you have any statistics about pricing per wipe, like wet wipes versus
yeah. Do you have a Funderbeam account?
Actually, I don't.
Are the questions public? I have answered the same question actually on Funderbeam platform lately. I don't want to make any mistakes by heart. I will give you my card and I will email them, because there is so much data, and I get really mad when I say something that isn't true. Then I can't sleep, really. It will be haunting me if I say that, yeah, per wipe it's like this much. But comparing to actually flushable wet wipes, you must take into account that adult usually uses 2 to 4 wet wipes, and plus toilet paper to try it up. Our 100 milliliter gel lasts up to 300 turns, and it's equal roughly to 600 to 900 wet wipes. So it's the price category. It's similar than high-end flushable wet wipes, and we're not the most expensive in toilet tissue moisturizer category. Also, there's a company in Switzerland, Josephine's Toiletries, and they make this toilet foam in special box with 2 rolls of toilet paper in the box also, and the price is $890. So yeah, it's easier to buy iPhone and wipe with it. But they're aiming like Russian oligarchs and Hollywood celebrities. Gwyneth Paltrow is one of their most famous users. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Sean, for that. I'm sure you have more questions, so we'll have a short break, but please feel free to reach out to Sean directly. And for the discussion section, if you don't have an account on Funderbeam, you can just sign up and see also the discussions and comments that other investors have been using. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you for the attention.
So next up, we're okay. So we're just gonna jump straight ahead. We're gonna have next Tankcare on the over here basically. So we have the founders of Tankcare, Ryan Suska and Yanis Tamada, who will be talking about their investment opportunity and why they're raising funds on Funderbeam. So please welcome Ryan and Yanis.
Very good.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Janis, and this is Brian. Hello. Yeah, we have a bit bigger team, but this is how we basically started. There was one more guy, and you doing it? Yeah. Oh, who's that? Yeah. We started as 3 home brewers roughly 5 years ago, and we quickly understood that there's a market, there's a chance for us to be on the market with our products.
Yeah, so pretty much we started off with, I started with a 20-liter bucket, and this was basically took more time to make than it did to drink, so we had to figure out something to do with that. And then Janis was having slightly bigger ones, like 40 and 60 liters, and then we were having this discussion, and then one night it turned out that we decided let's make this much bigger. And then a couple months later we were looking at used equipment online, which was a bit exciting but also a bit terrifying. And then 5 months later we were getting a container full of equipment, and then we went from 100-liter batches to 1,000-liter batches. But yeah, so it's about 5 years now, and we went from basically a couple crazy guys who had, like, maybe nobody took seriously, into being one of the largest craft breweries in Estonia, and really expanded our reach locally and internationally. So yeah, our sort of philosophy is that, you know, a beer is something that you can really like sit down and enjoy. It brings people close together. It's like this cool mix between like art, between science, between just community. So it's just like a really cool thing that brought us together, and we thought that it would be a cool thing to share with people.
Yeah, and like I said, Brian came to Estonia not for beer reasons, but the beer was missing from the shelves, and what he brought back as well was, but brought you here with your knowledge about craft beer, because in the US the market has already been booming by that time, and yeah, especially the refreshing and like reloaded, what you have on the table, pale ale, and some recipes what we had in Estonia already figured out.
Yeah, basically, if you, for those of you who have been in Estonia for a while, if you like reverse time 6 to 8 years, there was really nothing on the market. A couple industrial lagers, and that are designed to be as cheap to make and unoffensive as far as flavor, so that everybody can drink it like water, and it basically is water. And I had grown up with craft beer, so like when I was in my early 20s, this was what everybody had at parties, was you know, Sierra Nevada Pale Ale and Stone IPA. So when I came here, I saw like, okay, this market looks exactly like San Diego does. Okay, well, weather's a little bit different, but the conditions for beer were like almost the same. So people were just starting to get more interested in the type of foods that they wanted, the clothes, and being like, just everyone was like reaching for something that's a bit more premium. So we saw that this is something that we could do, and we could like really get passionate behind and run with. And what we have seen is that the response was just way more than we had expected. So we when we started, we kind of weren't sure like if it was going to work. So we basically took all of our retirement savings and plowed it into equipment, and then before you know it, the tanks were all full, and we couldn't make enough beer. So we quickly ordered more tanks, and then we realized, damn, we can't fill all this beer. So we should have added a picture in there, but the first 100,000 bottles of beer we filled by hand, and our friends stopped answering our phone calls. But the way it is today is that we've just, like many startups, sort of struggling with our own success. It's like it's a good problem to have, but how do you cope with that organizationally? How do you cope with that as far as working capital? How do you cope with that as far as just keeping up with output? So that's kind of why we're here today, telling our story. We have a campaign ongoing to raise funds, and we have a new project in the works.
Yeah, and basically we won't repeat all of it what is written, but at the moment we can do 4,000 to 6,000 liters a week, and
you are the last in the conference.
And we are aiming to the same figure a day, and everything is like both phases of the project are done, and our sales is also up to the production.
Yep. So this is what it looks like at the moment. There's Jonas doing some beer-like things, but you can see that in the copper vessels in the upper left. This is our brew house. This is where we're actually mixing the malt with the water, making what is called wort. And our lautering tun, it's a bit older. You can see it's not the latest technology, and so this has really limited our capacity. So we are at the point where we cannot grow anymore with this equipment. So yeah, so we started with these two vessels to actually produce the wort, and in the back are smaller fermentation tanks. Those are 1,000 liters. On the right, we have 2,000 liter tanks that we would do a double brew. We also have 2 tanks for packaging. And what you don't see in this picture are 4,000 liter tanks that we have in place at the moment. But the new facility will be quite a bit different. So, I can talk about the. Yeah. But yeah, okay. Before we get to the new brewery, this is essentially where we are as far as the distribution. So, not unsurprisingly, Estonia is our strongest market. We started here, we're here all the time, but between Estonia and Finland we have 500 supermarkets, and so we think that this is a really good base for us to expand on. We also have our selection of beers really well suited for supermarkets. So I mean, our philosophy is that a beer is something to drink. It's not something to sip on like a little bit at a time. So nearly everything that we make is less than 6%, and this is good as far as the customers in the supermarket, and also in Finland it's 5.5 or lower you're allowed to sell in the supermarket without going through their monopoly. So this is why many of the beers are there. But we have lots of countries with really small quantities sold. So it takes a lot of work to develop the relationships, but we've put in this hard work over the last years to build up the relationships. So we've sort of primed those channels for extra sales, and they've been asking us when are you going to get more? Can you promise us more? But Jonas was telling me that he made a big order of Sauna Session, one of our most popular beer, to France, and then we were empty here for a couple of weeks, and we were just crossing our fingers, please, let's not get a fine, because if you can't deliver to a large customer, they're unhappy. That's why we want to address in this new project, is that get ready. So yeah, so far we've done more than 75 different types of beers. So I guess this represents our home brewing background, and we all have different flavors and tastes that we're looking for. I mentioned the export markets, but I think it's also interesting is the collaboration brews. So, the beer industry is one of those very friendly industries. So we are all, as craft breweries, sort of fighting to steal a share from the big breweries like the Carlsbergs of the world and the Heinekens.
Yeah, but on the same time, we are not only competing with Estonian breweries, we also compete with European, especially if you go to markets like Finland, Sweden, where they have tenders. So it's always about brand, about the beer, the quality, and then later on the pricing.
Yep. So then that brings us to our project. So it's nearly 2 years in the works, and basically at the end of the year we will open up a brand new brewery. It is a custom designed building. We picked out where all the infrastructure is from the ground up. So this was a very cool opportunity that now that we've been running for a few years, we've learned a lot exactly where we should have things, what sort of infrastructure we need, what's the water supply, electricity supply, and the sort of like crown jewel, the centerpiece of this new brewery is a top-of-the-line brew house that we got from a company in Germany called Gaspar Schultz. We went with them because they've been making brew houses for about 300 years, so they kind of know what they're doing. Also, like us, they're like a small business, so to say. It's family owned, so they make and design all of their equipment in-house, and they were really receptive and wanted to understand what is it that you're doing with your ingredients to make the beer, because we do some crazy things like put trees in our beer. So we need to make it possible to produce those type of beers on big volumes.
Some news on this slide is that we got a grant from BRIA last year for 320,000 euros, and we managed to file another one this year. So the reason why we did it in 2 phases and why we added more was that you can only use it 2 years after you file it, and then our project won't be ready completely end of or next year summer. So then this one will be again 2 years we can use.
Yeah, so we did it in waves, so we can start and with all factories, factories, you have this stepwise investment. You can't just go nice and smooth. So we didn't want to make it so large that we're only using a portion of the capacity. So we have it planned on how to step up the production to match the sales. And having the government support is quite an amazing thing. I was very happy that this is happening. So, so this is basically sort of the split on how we plan to use the funds. So it's a source of money that we've generated from the business, from bank loans, from grants, and also from our fundraising campaign. And so a large portion of that is the new brew house, but we also have extra tanks, both fermentation and maturing tanks. We're planning a canning line, and then a small bit for sour beer production, because this is something that we've sort of pioneered in Estonia, and then of course a bit for marketing. So this is a picture from when we were in Brewery 2 years ago. It's a largest brewing equipment convention. It takes place in Nuremberg every other year. And so they have a setup like this, and this looks essentially is like the same configuration that we're going to get. So, I mean, it's like comparing if our current brewery is a Lada, this is like a Porsche Turbo, basically. So, it's really important for us because it's going to make it sustainable to be able to produce beer consistently and efficiently. So right now it can take, depending on the beer style, it can be 8 hours to 12 hours to produce one batch of wort, which needs to then ferment for 3 weeks to a month. But in this brew house that we're getting, it'll do that every 7 hours. And it will also handle all of the raw material in and out, which can be up to 700 kilos. So it's a lot. Right now, this is what we have to lift in for every brew, and then also take it out and dispose of it. It handles that, weighs it, mills it, mashes it in, takes it out all automatically on conveyors. So our brewing crew is going to be very happy about that. But that means that we can do multiple brews in a day, and back to back, and then in the long run we have a plan to add an extra vessel, so it's already inside the plan, which would cut the cycle time in half. So then every 3.5 hours we could make another batch of beer.
So relative to your current capacity, how much would that eventually be?
We say 10 to 12 times. Yeah. So yeah. So this is the layout. I mentioned that we got to draw this all by however we wished it to be. So, but yeah. So immediately it's going to be double the capacity and 10 times in 2 years. There's
the bottleneck is not in the brewing, but it's in the fermentation. So
right.
It's scalable.
Yeah. So that's a good point. So what you can't see is because this is a top-down view. The ceilings are really tall. So we can take the tanks that are going to be 4,000 liters and swap them out with, say, a 10 or a 12,000 liter tank. And there's also another building over here on the other side of this wall that would be potentially available to us if we were to need it. So it is possible, and these are outside. Those are actually silos for grain. So we do have options for putting fermentation tanks on the outside of the building as well that are very tall. Those generally are extremely large tanks. So yeah, with this, with the maximum configuration, running it around the clock, like day shift, night shift, and then planning only the downtime for this regular maintenance, then the output is even higher than we have here.
Yeah, and the good thing about the automation is that we can repeat the same product all the time, while now we rely on our employees, or us, or whoever is brewing. So
yeah. we're gonna try and exchange muscle work for machine work, basically. So yeah, that's a short introduction to what's happening with our company at the moment. I guess now it's time for questions.
Thank you very much, Ryan and Dianis. So again, we'll start with the questions. And if anyone of you would like to ask, just feel free to raise your hand and ask away. So I'd like to start off with maybe starting from you, Ryan, actually. So what brought you to, what led you to leave San Diego, come to Estonia and meet Ryan?
Not the weather. It's very, very nice today though. But my wife is Estonian, so I met her in the U.S. and we were living there for some time. And I guess like all Estonians, they eventually get homesick and want to return here. So I've always been adventurous and was willing to give it a shot. So quit my job, sold most of my stuff, and packed up my clothes and came here, and haven't looked back.
Okay, and how did Dianis basically fit into the picture? How did you guys meet?
Yeah, so I was living in the city center and in a small apartment. It wasn't really possible to brew beer there. But then 6.5 years ago, I moved to a house in the suburbs. And I was like, yes, I have a garage, I can get more bicycles, I can start making beer. So then I just sort of reached out to people that were also making beer, and then I realized that Giannis was living just down the street from me and has been brewing for some time, and his brother was also involved with this beer industry, so we had this immediate connection, and then we started meeting up with other people in the homebrewers clubs, and then one thing led to another, and then we had the brewery.
So once the Ryan was in the picture, how did your brewing style change, or rather the capacity and the size and the whole story?
Yeah, at home you tried new beer every time, and that's why I saw the 75 new brews in our picture, which is really ridiculous if you think about commercial business brewing. And we all had, there was 3 of us, so we all had some recipes, and our style was completely different. All the fruity, refreshing, citrusy things what Ryan brought to the scene they were really nice, and we just used his skills and experience.
Mm-hmm. And what made you, so you also throughout your story, you started out small but then suddenly just scaled up to a very big level to what you were doing. How did that come to play? What made you choose to do that?
Like home brewing wise, or
yeah, home brewing, or rather going from home brewing to actual production where you can sell and export the brews that you're doing.
Basically, it's 20 times bigger than the home brew. It's not that much.
I guess it was just a bit of like, you know, lifestyle engineering. Like you want to do something that you're passionate about, that you own, that you can build. It's like your baby, and then Giannis was very quick to say, yes, I'm ready to do this full time. So yeah, I think that plays a big part of it. And then it's you get like this confidence. Of course, like your friends are always saying what you're doing is really awesome, but it is nice to see people so happy. Like, oh, like I just love your beer. When are you going to make more of it? When are you going to make more of it? So then just kind of pushed us to make the jump.
So tankers, I mean, the beers can be found pretty much everywhere in Estonia, but what gives you that sense of identity? How do you distinguish yourselves from other breweries, both locally and internationally?
I guess, well, the most obvious one is the sauna session. Like, this is a beer that is totally unique in the world, I guess. There's really nothing else like it. It's sort of one of those love it or hate it beers. Like, there's not much hops. There's a lot of really like birch flavor to it, which if you tell someone outside of Estonia it tastes like birch, they're like, what could that possibly taste like? But yeah, this the smell that you get from that one is just like such a strong connection, like that takes you to this place of Estonia and the sauna culture and like all those traditions. So it has like this real like, I don't know, connection to the land. But yeah, I think other than that, we are just obsessed about perfecting things. So we want to get our malt directly from the maltster. We want to get our yeast directly from the laboratory that's making it. We want to get the hops directly from the farmer. We want to tune our process as much as possible to make the absolute best product we can. So I guess it's just yeah, we want to make just the best possible product, and then we think that it resonates with people.
Mm-hmm. And so you talked about before, you mentioned how you essentially brought your expertise from the US, and Giannis had his expertise from Estonia, and Sauna Session being your bestseller, right? Your most popular beer. Presumably, Estonians can associate that beer with the sauna tradition in Estonia. But at the same time, you also mentioned you had a large order from France, and so how do these maybe local beers and unique beers transition to this international market?
Actually, it was a kind of a fun thing, because we never took sauna session to our international festivals, because before it's Estonian, Finnish, and Baltic thing. But we got a lot of feedback from the guys from Europe, our friends we collab with, that it's an awesome beer. Why do you serve it in Copenhagen or in France at the festival? And we learned it by just from feedback that we should start also presenting this beer as something unique from Estonia. And yeah, the big company who's having only a bottle shop in the web in France picked it up and actually picked themselves this beer from our core range. And I think it's a good example of how the product itself works good, not only the brand. But just to add here, I think we have a really good brand. It's colorful, fresh, and it's a good name. So this also helps a lot. And it's the branding in this business is of course a very huge and important thing.
One of the things as well, especially I like about Tankers, so you've collaborated with a lot of breweries from outside of Estonia. So how do you see, in a sense, craft breweries, sort of it's their own competitors in a sense, but at the same time they have their sense of identity. What is your approach towards competitors?
I think that the collaborations and going to festivals, this is really important in this industry, because none of us have like a monopoly on good ideas, and I think that the more you talk about what you do and your process and your ingredients and why it's important to you, the more you learn. And so it's just it's something that benefits everyone. It benefits the whole industry. There was like a really awesome festival this last weekend here in Baltium, where all the small brewers were presenting their beers, and this is just like, it's just a cool like environment to be part of. And it's kind of like one of those when you have one good restaurant on a street, like maybe it survives, but then you get a second or a third and a fourth, and then it's like restaurant row and everything. It just elevates the quality of everything. So I think that's one thing that we're seeing here in Estonia, that us and some of the other breweries are also like really like driving this and bringing everyone up. And I think that it's something that can help, export the sort of like the name and the image of Estonia outside with things like the sauna session. So.
And you have, in terms of markets, you have sold your products to like 20 plus markets essentially. What was your strategy towards picking these markets? How did that come along?
Well, we're a small company, so it's basically whatever we can get at first. And so Janis speaks Finnish, so of course this was like a natural thing for us to go to. And then so much cultural similarities, and then we looked towards basically the areas around us. But kind of the way it worked out is that you just meet people at festivals and they invite you to come to their place and brew, or go to a tap takeover, or there's a beer festival, and you get there and you meet a person who knows a person, and then you just it's really like this grassroots marketing effort. Like you have to go there, put your feet on the ground, shake hands, talk to people, and then go from there. And once you get some of your beers in the area, then people start talking and asking questions, and then now we're at the point where people like start asking us for the beer too, which is pretty awesome. But in the start it was just, what's coming up next? Okay, let's get in the car and drive there. So we did a lot of that.
Okay. And earlier this year you opened your tap room. How did that come along? Was it just a natural part of the process, or just you wanted to have your own place to serve your beers?
I think all breweries want a place where they can interact directly with people, but our brewery is like in the countryside at the moment, so it's not really like on a route where people are going to come and stop by. The new one is in a much more close location for that. But we had this unique opportunity to do a collaboration with Ubaja Humo, and so they're an existing bottle shop. They're like, I would say, an institution in craft beer in Tallinn. So we had this opportunity to expand the operation there, and so we got together and opened up a nice little bar. So just 20 taps, the largest selection of craft beer on tap in Estonia. So
I might add that most of the bars in Estonia, or let's say everywhere, but also in Estonia, they have some contracts with someone who asks their taps, and they can tell you what you need to serve. We wanted to avoid it, so it's independent. We can choose 20 beers to be on tap, and of course present our beers, our new beers, releases, get all our beers on the shelf, which might not happen otherwise.
So jumping to one last thing, seeing that you're you originally from San Diego, so you've been living in Estonia for 5-6 years?
8 years.
8 years, okay. So how was your transition? How did you adapt to the Estonian culture? And you see, basically, from what we follow you, basically, that you also embrace this kind of endurance sport culture that's in Estonia that you're running. So how does that come along?
Well, as a typical American, I was thinking that like Europe is this like amazingly exotic place, and I expected culture shock and all these crazy things. And like, wow, it's so normal here. Everything just works. So I was a little disappointed that it wasn't like more shocking. But of course, it helps to have a loved one who's a local, because she had all of her friends and relatives. So I kind of like felt immediately plugged in. But yeah, 8 years ago there weren't so many expats here, but it's changed a lot. But I would say that as a foreigner, it's pretty easy to integrate, and like all places, like if you're older, I sound old, yeah. It's someone who's like in their past their 30s, it's like maybe like not so easy to make friends. It's like you're not in like school anymore, but but I met a lot of people through making beer and also riding bikes. I've been cycling for a lot and maybe taking it to like a little bit crazy next level. So, but yeah, I'll be attempting my first Ironman in 3 weeks.
Good luck. And last thing from my side, so having been through this process, what kind of advice, if any, would you give to any expats or maybe someone from our international audience that is considering Estonia?
I would say just show up. I mean, like all things that involve risk is like you just gotta go out and try. You never know what's going to happen if you don't take the first leap. But I think it's a very nice and accessible place to be. So yeah, it's my home now.
Thank you very much, Ryan and Yanis. Is there anyone from the audience who would like to ask any questions?
Okay, one.
Thank you. I think it's a great topic to make big business. Anyway, not the production side. I've been in the user side since I was maybe 13. I can't remember exactly. In my summer house during mid-summer day. But two things. If I'm not wrong, please correct me. I think after re-independence, Estonian big brewers maybe lobby. We had a law that if you produce more than a certain amount of beer, there are very high restrictions, which means maybe big investments, which kill most small breweries. So even the law is changed or the technology is cheaper now. And if I'm not wrong, this small breweries started to grow up exactly 5-8 years ago. You were at right place, right time. Finland for me is exotic. It's very beer traditional. This is more surprise. That's one thing. Is it some kind of your growth is coming from Estonia, but you're going now to the export? It is more difficult, I think. That's one thing. Second thing, ingredients. Are they local or you buy anything? Or you outsource growing ingredients? Thank you.
Yeah, I can take it. Brian wasn't here in those times. But actually, we have craft brewers or independent brewers. Craft brewers who produce less than 3,000 hectoliters get, it was used to be before it, 3,000 hectoliters, you get the tax reduction 50%. Now it's up to 6,000 hectoliters. Just to translate, it's 600,000 liters. Craft Brewers Association in Estonia, where I'm involved, we are trying to get this level even higher. So we are working actively to get it to 1 million liters. Why this market happened to be like that? Actually, big breweries bought most of the breweries by that time. They bought like all the small ones and closed them down because it wasn't really, it didn't make sense to brew small scale. But this was all before the craft beer came around. You can compare with Latvia, where there are lots of craft breweries by name, but they still make the same beer, like
dark and honey.
I didn't want to say that, but it's like 30 years ago, 3 times dark, light, and flavor with honey. So this answers the question. We didn't have much small breweries left, and we started from scratch. I don't think it's much cheaper now, but there's definitely more knowledge in internet, in experience from US, who was leading the whole thing. The next question was about exporting. It's ingredients. We don't get anything except water from Estonia. So there's no malteries in Estonia. The malt is coming from Lahti in Finland. We might use Estonian barley, but we are not sure, because they will be all picked by quality of the year. Some year Russian is better, or Latvian, Lithuanian is better. So, but we get high quality ingredients. Hops, we tend to use American hops and Australian hops and some noble hops, but not that much. And the yeast is really developed in different places, mainly using it from Copenhagen. It's a White Labs, which is a company, American company, but also has the operation now in Copenhagen, which makes our life a bit easier. We use some from Lallemand, which has operation also in Estonia, but they don't do brewing yeast here. So if we could use Estonian barley, it would be already a good help. And the export and also growth plans is that craft beer is roughly 1% or maybe 1.3 according to the numbers last year. We are aiming 1% of beer market in Estonia, Estanker, and this is already a big plan. The export will be growing faster since we are planning to be in tenders of the monopolies, Finland, Sweden, maybe Norway, and we want to get our beer on the supermarkets in Baltics. These are the closest markets, which makes more sense. Yeah, we want to win in Estonia and the neighboring countries.
Go ahead.
Hey, how much government excise policy have changed your plans, and also recent news about the increased price level of electricity?
What was the second part?
Increase price of electricity. Electricity will go higher, and also the excise every year. Government prices.
Yeah, we can't really change the politics, so we have to live with the life how it's set here. What we can do, we can combine our forces and talk to the people in the government, and we do that. So in the end, there will be common sense, which we'll see if we raise excise even more or not. Excise for us hasn't been that big issue last year, because basically all the small craft breweries stopped and never raised the prices. So it's we've been being more efficient by growth. Maybe also cut some hit from the margins, but basically what happened to in the shop is that these big breweries, their beer and our beer, this price is getting closer to each other, and this is where we're really starting to win. Hopefully we can reduce our overhead so much that we can get it very close or the same for a big bottle and our small bottle. This will be the place where people start making different decisions.
And then on the electricity issue, the new brewery is much more energy efficient because it's a brand new building, and also the brew house is a lot more efficient by nature. So in that sense, we're hedging that risk a bit as well.
Can you describe I can speak beyond that. Can you describe in overall what are the costs of your product until it's on the shelf? What is the labor cost? What is the hops and water and all together?
Do we have these documents on?
So right now, Tanker has documents the annual report and income statement, balance sheet. But perhaps you can also talk about the costs of how these break down in terms of running a brewery and how this will change with the new facility.
Margins matter. So just roughly speaking, our gross margins are 55%, and so that includes the direct cost of the ingredients, the bottles, and the utilities that are going towards that. And then we are targeting 20 to 30% of as a net margin, and so a a large portion of this is, of course, the raw materials and the transportation and labor costs. So as we change the production from the current brewery to the new one, we will win on the ingredients for two reasons. One of them is that the efficiency of the brew house is much better, meaning we get a lot better extraction from the malt. Also we will be consuming more of the ingredients, so we'll be purchasing them in larger quantities, so we also save on these volume pricing. Then the second part is that we can achieve a much larger output and add maybe 2 to 3 people. So that means that the cost of labor per bottle goes down significantly. Labor costs are rising very quickly in Estonia, and also because it's Europe, the taxes are very high as well. So it's going forward. That's a very important part for us in our business plan to have a very efficient production. And then, like I mentioned, the utilities. So currently we are using much more water than planned or than optimal, just by nature of our production process. We're basically putting hot water down the drain, which can be used as a process application to capture heat and also save water. So the new brewery will be much more efficient from an energy and sustainability standpoint, and also much less as far as the cost of labor.
I don't want to give any neighbors by heart, but it's but basically our overhead is bigger than the ingredients at the moment, and actually a lot bigger.
We have a question in the back.
It's okay without the microphone as well. So what was the reason why you picked Funderbeam as your funding partner?
So the way that we choose all of our partners is that we want to work with nice people that know what they're doing, and so we felt very comfortable with the people. We liked the idea of the platform, and we like that they're people that we can work with to get out and engage with individual or potential investors. It's also great to have this ability for people to have their liquidity where they can trade the tokens between themselves. And so yeah, it's just I guess it's like a mix of the service and the people.
What I was expecting is that part of the answer would be that they have experience actually with other breweries. And hence the second question, follow-up question is do you consider synergies with other breweries? I just Googled while we were speaking and saying some bad words about Latvian beer market. I am Latvian. So we had in 2017 synergy with SATU and Leopard, and you made some beer which was well accepted in Latvian market, IPA, right? So do you have any plans similar like that? So mostly currently we're talking about building a brewery here, all effort going here. It seems quite small, but these different locations across Europe. That's
Yeah, no, but I hope we didn't characterize anything bad about Latvian beer. So actually, we have some very good friends from Latvia. We've made collaborations with Latvian brewers as well. But we were just saying, as a whole, the beer market is much more traditional in Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland than it is in Estonia. They're much more towards this American, UK style, super hoppy, lots of different styles instead of having just a few core beers. But we plan to keep our production in Estonia and keep it in one base. But it's possible that we make beers directly for certain regions. Haven't totally discussed it, but our main thing is that we want to make beers that we like to drink, that are enjoyable, that we want to share with others, and first we'll make sure that those are well received by everyone else. I don't know if that answers your question exactly.
Yeah, sure.
So, as you mentioned, this craft beer scenery started from, or the boom started from the US, and you had this good chance to copy what other breweries have been doing there, but now as you grow bigger, do you see that you still have the kind of role model that you can follow, or are you already inventing things yourself, how to grow the business?
Yeah, we're always inventing something new. I mean, we try lots of things, and we don't release everything that we try, of course. But a big part of that is experimentation. But I guess like every company in like this creative space is that you have to look around and see what are the other people in the industry doing. And of course, there's many other breweries that we respect and adore and worship, even that we're thinking, okay, how can we make something like that? So yeah, it's there's inspiration to be found all throughout the world, really, in brewing, and also like in food in general. So like, you know, we have to remember that like beer is basically like a food product. So it's just a matter of like, how do you capture that type of like either the expression of a certain place or like a flavor or sort of like an experience, and put that in a bottle for someone.
But what's your feeling about well, how to say, like, okay, let's see. I'll ask you later.
Okay.
I can ask one question. Like most of us know, all factories in Estonia are having labor problems. My question to you is: do you have access to highly skilled professionals, or do you have to train them from the ground zero?
I mean, we are a really small company, so we have taken people that we've known that have either like, experience in brewing, or that are like well established as like a beer expert, or like a sommelier type of background. So yeah, we do get. I guess people think that Tanker is bigger than it is, so we do get CVs from all over Europe saying, "Oh, I'm a microbiologist. I've studied this and that." So we do get lots of people like unsolicited to send their CVs, but yeah, we'll see what happens. We're really happy with the team we got there. They're really excellent. They work hard, and they're always like pushing themselves to do more. So we're very, very happy with that.
So your growth will not be stopped by lack of specialists?
No.
If I understand correctly, actually, your production will need much less labor anyway once you scale up the automation. I would have a question related to that. How long is the expected lifetime of the new equipment?
There are brew houses that had in commission for many decades. We've seen them that have been there for like we visited them that were like even hundreds of years old when we were visiting in Germany. Of course, they require regular maintenance schedules, but it's like yeah. I'm not super young, so I hope it'll last longer than I do.
Last quick question from me. I don't think it's common on Funderbeam that companies have presented their own sort of valuation ranges. So the question is that who helped prepare those valuations? Is it in-house knowledge, or you had some help from outside?
Do you want to comment on the valuation part as a common thing or not?
Yeah, so maybe I can comment on that. So originally, essentially, so we've been working with Tanker for a long time, and they had their own people basically that were helping them with this. There's actually a very detailed analysis of how this was done, and some of that information will be released eventually throughout the campaign. But also as a reminder, during the indication phase, certain information is limited. So for the investors who do make an indication on Funderbeam, they will receive a proposal together with the complete information package that will contain information which is not just publicly available like the 2017 annual report, but also information from 2018 and their due diligence report as well.
But one thing we wanted to do to provide the most transparent and trustable financials possible is that we like voluntarily went through a full audit, like as if we would be an AS essentially. So on previous year's statements, which took several months and was a lot of fun for answering the questions. But yeah, we did that, and so our annual report was audited, and we worked with lawyers and a couple different bankers in the commercial investment community to put together that due diligence report. No, we didn't do it in house.
So that's it. I'll kind of Sim, would you mind standing up here as well? Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. A couple last housekeeping rules or things to share before we let you go. One, information and transparency. Take advantage of it. We have these guys here this evening, so for everybody physically here, make sure to just, if you have any other questions or just want to meet them in general and have like a casual conversation, definitely take advantage and speak with them. For everybody on the internet, you can always still, like if you had questions or think of them later, just post in the comments below or go to funderbeam.com. Secondly, again, I'll stress this, if you haven't already, go to funderbeam.com, scroll all the way to the bottom, read the risk disclosure statement. And three, if you enjoyed this format, if you like us doing stuff like this, also tell us personally or post in the comments section below, and we will do this again. All this stuff is very experimental for us, of just trying to provide different forms of information and value to the people who are using Funderbeam. So it's really important just to either tell us personally or let people know on the website or through social media. So that's it. Thank you for joining. And
just one small thing. Also, the people here at Lift 99, they have a short poll, basically where you can rate the event, how it was, and give your feedback there as well. So please take your time. It's this thing that you see up here.
Is that a 0 or an O?
That's an O. O.
It's an O.
Thank you.
Of course, try the product. It's on the table.
Yeah.
From free.
Do you have some events coming sooner? Banker.
We have events all the time now. It's every weekend, some of the weeks up to September, and a bit further.
You can see them on our Facebook page.
Yes. Yep. Facebook stores.
Oh, no, sorry.
all right. So thank you very much.
Okay, 0. I'm sorry.
Bye. Bye, Mom. See ya. All right. Thanks.